I got the key, load to the highway, build out and bound. I'm gonna be. In the United States, an older adult falls every second of every day. In fact, falls are the leading cause of injury and injury-related death in adults 65 and over. 36 million older adults fall each year, and 32,000, they die from that fall. Every year, 3 million older adults are rushed to an emergency room for a fall-related injury, and 1 out of every 5 of these falls causes a severe injury, like a broken bone or a brain injury. More than 95% of hip fractures are caused by falling, usually by falling sideways, and 300,000 older people are hospitalized for hip fractures every year. Women fall more often than men and account for 3/4 of all hip fractures. Globally, the total numbers are dizzying, especially when you add in young adults who suffer from loss of balance-related conditions and resulting injuries. A loss of balance often occurs due to a problem with the signals the ear sends to the brain. These signals usually control our sense of balance and spatial awareness. However, if a person has a condition that affects the brain or inner ear, they may experience a loss of balance, spinning sensations, unsteadiness, or dizziness. Loss of balance can occur for a range of reasons, like an injury to the brain or spinal cord, ear infections, medications, and neurological disorders. Now, let's turn it over to DJ Penix, citizen data scientist, for a little more insight.
From a clinical standpoint, people may need to undergo many different types of tests during the diagnosis stage. While some of the tests may help doctors understand the root cause of balance issues, one test can assess the severity of balance issues and also help determine the risk associated with falling. The Berg Balance Scale is one of the best-known balance measurement tools, which can be used to determine a patient's ability or inability to safely balance during a series of predetermined tasks. It is a 14-item task list, with each item consisting of a 5-point ordinal scale ranging from 0 to 4, with 0 indicating the lowest level of function and 4 indicating the highest level of function. This initial task is called sitting to standing. In this task, the patient must stand unsupported with their eyes closed for a total of 10 seconds. While the items start out by doing simple tasks which evaluate the ability to maintain basic static positions, the tasks do have increasing difficulty by decreasing the base of support and adjustments of their center of mass. This task requires the patient to reach forward with outstretched arms while in the most forward lean position. Finally, the task progressed to dynamic activities of harder difficulty. The equipment needed for conducting the Berg Balance Assessment is fairly minimal: a ruler, 2 standard chairs, footstool, stopwatch, and a 15-foot walkway. The entire test takes approximately 20 to 30 minutes to complete. Here in this visual analytics dashboard, we have the ability to monitor, track, and record the results from the Berg Balance Assessment. While the Berg Balance Scale is a valid, efficient measure of postural balance, there is opportunity to enhance this process by making it more streamlined, more objective with measurable data, and also expand upon the interpretation of long-term historical testing. The ordinal scale also does not fully allow consistent or precise scores among different clinicians and test subjects. Our solution? Utilizing IoT devices and SAS machine learning to determine a risk score for falling and assist early determination of disease and progression of injury and health. Disease and progression of injury and health. Utilizing a simple web camera, a smart wearable like BioSol or other IoT devices, OpenPose, and SAS visual data mining and machine learning software, we have created an objective assessment of a patient risk score for losing balance and falling. OpenPose is a real-time multi-person system to jointly detect human body, hand, facial, and foot key points on single images or in real-time video. Created by researchers at Carnegie Mellon University, they have also released it in the form of Python code. SAS VDMML is used for the data management and model development of the OpenPose data. By taking the data from the various body points, we can calculate the center of mass of an individual doing various tasks, such as picking up objects off the floor, turning in circles, or even standing perfectly motionless with the eyes closed. By training the SAS models to understand a perfect behavior of a person, we are able to create a digital twin for establishing baseline reference for other people or for the same person so that their progression can be trended and evaluated. Using the SAS VIA platform, we can visualize and analyze data that is collected from the OpenPose software and other IoT devices. For a simple use case, we utilized a small subset of the task list from the Berg Balance Assessment. It is important to note that the results of our small experiment are simply for demonstration purposes only in order to show the capabilities of IoT devices, OpenPose, and SAS VDMML. The techniques for capturing, collecting, and analyzing the data can be applied to numerous healthcare-related use cases. On our dashboard, we can click into Key Point Analysis. Here, this initial screen shows some animations for the various key points. On the left window, this is all of the key point features that are collected from the OpenPose software. In the middle, we've grouped the key points by feature group, including head, arms, shoulder, legs. And finally, on the right hand, this is the calculated center of mass. This particular data point is very important in order to determine balance and risk factors for falling. On the Key Point Groups tab analysis, we can see somewhat of a tracing effect of each of the different key points. On the right-hand side, the calculated center of mass, although somewhat small, you can still see that the movement has occurred in the particular patient. This particular task for number 6 is to have the patient stand motionless with their eyes closed for a period of 10 seconds. As you can see, if we changed over this to another trial that the patient ran, the center point of mass is almost motionless. This indicates a much better improvement and much better score than the previous example. In the Distance of Key Point Analysis tab, we're calculating the absolute and relative distances by key point feature. The absolute distance is the calculated distance from the XYZ coordinate position, or 0, 0, in the upper left-hand corner of the image or video. The relative distance is the frame-by-frame distance of each key point feature in the video from the previous record. In this initial trial, the patient was perfectly calm throughout the test, so both the absolute and relative distances are consistently minimal. But in another test, you can see movement from within the video frame, as well as on a frame-by-frame basis of the previous record. This is clearly an instance where the patient was struggling to keep their balance. Now that we've reviewed some of the basic, raw, and calculated values from our experiment, we're ready to see if we can build some models to predict the actions of our volunteer patients. Using SAS VDMML, we initially built a decision tree model. You can see that there are some nice supporting graphs and visualizations that help interpret and explain the model results. The variable importance chart shows us which factors contribute most significantly to our model. And the confusion matrix shows the results of our partition training and validation of the model. Overall, this looks pretty good. Just to see how a few other models would do, we also built a gradient boosting model. Here you can see some similar charts to the decision tree. We also built a random forest model. Again, similar charts, including a confusion matrix and a variable importance chart. And a really nice feature that SAS VDMML has is a model comparison report. Although each of the models did very well in accuracy, the gradient boosting model came out as our champion. Now that we have some models built and deployed, let's take a look at how we can do some scoring of some videos. On this screen, we have recordings of various real-time video that we shot of our patient volunteers. We asked each of them to reach down and pick up an object. The video panels have the final scored result of their actions, which will vary from 0 to 4. A score of 4 indicates they were able to pick up the object without any risk of falling. On the other hand, a score of 0 indicates the volunteer wasn't able to pick up the object and is at a high risk for falling. If you look at the upper left-hand corner of each video, you'll also notice that there is another score that indicates the current status of their body position. This score is done real-time and provides a status result on a frame-by-frame basis. The body position status values range from not trying, reaching, picking up object, or unstable. But we can train the models to provide any categorical values that we want. Tying all of this together, we can create additional patient dashboards that include other clinical data that can be collected. This SAS dashboard, built in Visual Analytics, is highly interactive. We have numerous filters that we can select to investigate our data, and the graph objects are also interactive themselves. Another nice feature of SAS is the Automated Explanation Report. The Automated Explanation Report determines the most important underlying factors for a specific response variable. After you specify a response variable, most of the remaining data items are automatically added as underlying factors. In this example, we use the scored model result as our response variable. It looks like health conditions, neuropathies, and inner ear are the top 3 factors related to our score result. By clicking on the various factors, we get an automatically generated text that explains the relationship between the score result and the factor itself. It is also important to note that the Berg Balance Scale does not include the assessment of gait. However, an IoT wearable device, such as the BioSol by Autonomous ID, can significantly expand on the assessment by doing analysis of the patient while walking, running, standing still, or doing any other simple task. The insoles use pressure sensors and circuitry to track every part of the patient's movement, which can be influenced by weight, injury, or disease. In another short experiment, we took data from several patient volunteers and had them do one of 4 activity tasks, which included standing still, walking downstairs, and walking upstairs. The volunteers each had a BioSol in their shoe, and the device tracks 6 sensor regions for acceleration and gyroscope data. As you can see, there are some clear patterns in the sensor data depending on the activity of the volunteer. The timeline of the accelerometer and gyroscope data also shows unique patterns in the sensors. And using the same SAS modeling techniques described earlier, the data from the BioSol device can also monitor a patient's signature for changes over time, which can then identify potential invisible warning signs of upcoming injuries and health risks. Artificial intelligence is proving it can spot the warning signs of disease before we, or even our doctors, know that we are ill.
The application of IoT devices and artificial intelligence in healthcare present numerous opportunities and use cases. These include training, research, end-of-life care, treatment, keeping well, early detection, diagnosis, and decision-making. The concept of determining a quantifiable pain scale is within our reach. Imagine if we built small IoT sensors into Band-Aids that can track our body movements. We could record, analyze, and provide scores that determine if a person is feeling more or less pain. This could be incredibly useful in determining the effectiveness of prescribed drugs, or even in tracking the negative side effects and risks associated with that medication. Telehealth options can be expanded by using the camera on a patient's home computer. Simple, inexpensive, and disposable sensor devices that have gyroscopes, accelerometers, and pressure sensors can further provide doctors information on in-depth gait analysis and body motion. Finally, the applications of the examples we've demonstrated here can apply to a myriad of other industries: manufacturing, retail, hospitality, and many, many, many more. The opportunity is limitless with a simple webcam, IoT devices, and SaaS machine learning software.